What's going on there, YouTube? And welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics and we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching storyline, combine them together to one big video. And so with that being said, today we're going to do the Ultimate Doomsday Trilogy storyline. Back in the Ultimate Marvel Universe after Ultimatum, Brian Michael Bendis wrote 3 storylines to tell one overarching storyline called Ultimate Doomsday Trilogy, where the big question is, who is now attacking the Earth? Who is attacking the heroes to get revenge, quotation marks. And so it took 3 whole storylines to figure out who was the big bad guy. And so with that being said, I do hope you enjoy today's comic book video. And if you do, hit that like button down below and subscribe. But here we go, the Ultimate Doomsday Trilogy. Let's dive in.
Alright, so the first chapter of this story opens up with Spider-Woman. Remember, in this universe, she is a clone of Peter Parker, and we see her watching over the Roxxon building, mainly because the business Roxxon is a shady business, and she does not want them to make any kind of project like her because it is so wrong. Except while she is watching over the Roxxon building, the place begins to blow up, and then we see some kind of gooey monster appear around the building. Now, of course, you have Spider-Woman go in there and save all the scientists in the building. But she asked them, what kind of monster is this? Because she thinks they're the ones who created this monster. These Roxxon scientists tell her that they're not the ones who made this monster. Now, of course, once she saves everyone, the monster does disappear, leaving everyone wondering what kind of monster that was. We then pick up with Reed Richards for the first time post-Ultimatum. And remember, at this point, the Fantastic Four team broke up. And so we don't have a Fantastic Four team right now. But after they broke up, Reed went back home to live with his family. And this is where Reed's computer goes off, detecting some kind of energy signature nearby him and his family. And so when there's a door knock on the door, Reed's father goes to answer it, but that is when the whole house blows up. We then pick up with Susan Storm, learning what she has been up to ever since the Fantastic Four team broke up. We see her right now using her powers to stay hidden because she was famous and people always... Now we do see Ben Grimm arrive, and this is Brian Michael Bendis building off on what happened before Ultimatum. What I mean is that when Susan sees Ben, they have their usual conversation, except this leads into Ben Grimm telling Susan how he truly feels about her, stating that he truly likes her and wants to be with her. And this is coming off the kiss that happened before Ultimatum in a previous Ultimate Fantastic Four book. And since Susan is now single and barely talks to Reed, Ben Grimm thought to himself, hey, let's give us a try. Of course, you have Susan say nothing, and Ben takes that as a no. And so he leaves to go home, except that same monster that attacked Spider-Woman at the Roxxon building is now attacking the Baxter building. We then jump over to a random guy eating at a restaurant, which at first leaves you wondering, who is he? Because he says that the world thinks he is dead, that he is top of the government's top secret list. That is when this man is attacked out of nowhere by some creature. After the attack, we learn it is Nick Fury in disguise because the world thinks he is dead. They have no idea that he is back. But we see that someone is trying to kill Nick Fury now as well. Now you have Brian Michael Bendis bring in Spider-Man and the Human Torch as well, where at this point the Human Torch lives with Spider-Man. But right now they're just going around town as heroes until they see all the explosions from Nick Fury fighting this crazy creature. And so, of course, you have the two jump in and try to stop this creature from killing Nick Fury. And this is a huge moment for Spider-Man because Spider-Man did not know that Nick Fury was back. But most of the other heroes already knew that. And so for Spider-Man, this is a very big thing to see the return of Nick Fury. And they do defeat the monster very quickly as well. But before they are able to continue the conversation, that is when the Human Torch sees the Baxter building is still being attacked by some gooey monster from earlier. And so while the Human Torch is flying over to the Baxter building, we see Ben Grimm is still trying to get to Susan because she was trapped inside the Baxter building when this gooey monster began to attack. Where of course you have Johnny Storm appear to find his sister because they have been apart for a while, and she is his last surviving family member at the moment. But this leads to Susan using her powers as a way to cut off a piece of the monster, but as soon as she did it, it stopped. Of course, Johnny is confused about what is going on, where you have Susan tell him she does not know anything either, except the fact that they know that the Baxter building is gone. And the only person who may be able to help her figure out what is going on is Reed Richards. But picking back up with Spider-Woman again, we see her go back to her apartment to finally get some rest and see what the news is saying about the Roxxon building being attacked by some monster. That is where she sees the reports of the other two incidents in the city, which was Nick Fury being attacked and also the Baxter building as well. And so she is wondering what is happening, except that is when she is attacked by the same monster who attacked Nick Fury in her own home. She is able to get away, but now the question is, why would this monster be after Spider-Woman as well? It does not add up. But then we pick up with the Human Torch, Susan Storm, and Ben Grimm, who are going to the home of the Richards to find Reed for help to figure out what kind of monster this is. Except when they get there, they get the news that there was some kind of explosion and everyone who was in the house is dead. And so Reed Richards is now dead and his family is as well. Now Spider-Man finds out that no one knew Reed and his family lived here. Only the government did. And so he realized that if someone went after Reed and his family, then Aunt May, Bobby Drake, and Gwen Stacy could be next. And so you have him try to call Aunt May to tell her to get out of the house. But of course, when he's calling her, we do see that something is about to attack the home of the Parkers. But before we can see what happens to Aunt May, Bobby Drake, and Gwen Stacy, we actually skip over to the Triskelion, the home base of S.H.I.E.L.D., where you have Carol Danvers trying to figure out what is going on, because she's just now getting reports about Nick Fury, the Baxter building, Roxxon, and now Reed Richards. Remember, she is now the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., well, has been for a while. But after she alerts all S.H.I.E.L.D. agents about what is happening, we see her go to the bathroom to catch a breather, because this is too much to handle. She had to handle huge problems left and right. And this is another event happening only months after Ultimatum. Except when she goes to the bathroom to catch a breather, she is confronted by Nick Fury, where we see him pull a gun on her because he thinks that she was the one who sent that creature after him. Because again, hardly anyone knows that Nick Fury is back in this universe, where she tells him it was not her and tries to make him think on the fact of why would she send somebody to kill him off, because she would not achieve anything except the fact that he would finally leave her alone. The story shifts over to Aunt May, Bobby Drake, and Gwen Stacy getting that call from Spider-Man about getting out of the house before they are attacked. Right when he calls, of course, the same creature that attacked Spider-Woman and Nick Fury came back to attack the home of the Parkers. Luckily, Bobby Drake is there, and we see him actually use his powers to defend the house, Aunt May and Gwen Stacy. Now, in the middle of the fight, we get a one-page that shows us that Carol Danvers and Nick Fury are alerted by a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent about what is happening at the home of the Parkers. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. is now going to get involved in that fight as well. But this gives us a few more pages of Iceman fighting this creature, and honestly I like this moment a lot for Bobby Drake, because this is a small moment where he's put in the spotlight. Bobby Drake has been around for a long time in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, but has not really had a moment where he's put on the spotlight and doing something freaking amazing. And so seeing him taking on this creature by himself is a big moment here. Except of course, this creature is too strong for him to handle. That is when Ben Grimm comes in and attacks the monster, letting us know that the other heroes we have seen so far except Spider-Woman has arrived. Now in a quick 2-pager, we see Ben Grimm try to fight against the creature, but this creature knocks him away flying. But while Ben Grimm lands, he sees pieces of him falling off. And this was something that was started in an earlier book in the Ultimate Fantastic Four run, except it was only one piece that fell off Ben Grimm back then. Now we're seeing a bunch of pieces falling off of Ben Grimm, and he starts to glow as well. Except the other heroes don't see it because they're too busy trying to fight against this creature, where Susan Storm is upset with the fact that Reed is now dead and could be this creature's fault. Also the fact that Spider-Man and the Human Torch are mad because this creature was attacking the home of the Parkers. And so you have the heroes fight against this creature. You even have S.H.I.E.L.D. jump in as well to help the heroes take down this thing. Supposed to be this epic team-up battle in the middle of Queens of New York, where all these innocent people can see. But it does get to a point where Susan Storm can hold this creature in one of her invisible shields. After the fight is all done, you have Spider-Man tell the rest of the group that something is happening to Ben Grimm, where we see that glowing light from inside of him is getting bigger because more pieces of him had fell off. And so this is showing that something big is about to happen to Ben Grimm, possibly in the near future. Now, Brian Michael Bendis puts Ben Grimm on the back burner for now, because we only see a couple pages of everyone freaking out about Ben, except we see him pass out after that, leaving us wondering what happened to him after that moment. But we do have a time jump where we see S.H.I.E.L.D. is now holding onto this creature, hoping to learn more about him and why he is here. Of course you have Carol Danvers and S.H.I.E.L.D. try to interrogate the guy, hoping to gather some information, except the alien is not saying anything. And so Carol Danvers calls in Nick Fury, because she knows he'll be able to get some kind of information out of this creature. Now, Brian Michael Bendis does give us a brief update with Ben Grimm. We see right now that he is in some kind of container that's running a test on him to figure out what is wrong with him. Except this moment right here is more of Susan Storm telling Ben Grimm, while he is unconscious, that she may have feelings for him. The reason why she didn't say anything earlier is because she needed time to process the fact that Ben Grimm, who was the best friend to Reed Richards, actually likes her and wants to be with her. And so now we know she does have feelings for Ben Grimm. But then out of nowhere, something begins to happen to Ben Grimm. He starts to glow again. But getting back to Nick Fury trying to get information out of the alien, we see that he is unable to get anything out of the alien. And so this leads into S.H.I.E.L.D. calling in Hawkeye, because apparently Hawkeye truly knows how to torture someone to get information out of that person, which only takes a matter of seconds, and we can see that Hawkeye is doing some real damage to this alien. Now we do get to jump over to Spider-Man to see how he, the Human Torch, Iceman, Gwen Stacy, and Aunt May are doing after their home was attacked by that creature. We see that Spider-Man is once again taking full responsibility for what had happened, even though he is truly innocent for what happened. And so you have him tell Aunt May and the others to leave and get a hotel until he knows that it's safe for them to come back home. And so he leaves to figure out if he can truly even help with the situation that is currently happening. We even see that Spider-Woman sees him swinging away, and she begins to follow him as well. This is where we pick up with Hawkeye being able to get some information out of the alien, where he says that he's the creation of the Creator. And right after he says that, he begins to say that the Earth Society does not work. Whoever he is working for wants to wipe the world out and bring in a new one. And so the gooey monster that we saw earlier that attacked Roxxon the Baxter building begins to come out of the monster, where S.H.I.E.L.D. has to rush out because the Triskelion, of course, also blows up because of this gooey monster. But to close on this story, we go back over to Ben Grimm to see what is happening to him, Where we see him right now, he is glowing again, but more pieces are falling off of him. Where after there's a small explosion in the building, we see that every piece of rock that made Ben Grimm the Thing fell off of Ben Grimm, and now he is this glowing creature, where the story ends on that note, and we have to wait until we pick up with Ultimate Mystery. Now, Brian Michael Bendis begins the second story of this trilogy with us going to Project Pegasus. Remember that this is the place where artifacts that the American government found over the years that they know about or do not know about are stored at. Where we pick up with Wendell Vaughn, who was the one in charge of the place, is meeting up with Philip Dawson. Now, if you have been following along with my Ultimate Marvel videos, then you know that this is the Captain Marvel in this universe, where he works for S.H.I.E.L.D. The reason why Captain Marvel is here is because S.H.I.E.L.D. sent him over to protect the place because of the recent attacks in our previous video. Also, the fact that this place has been broken into so many times, it is not even funny anymore. Now we pick up with Spider-Man. At the end of our last video, we saw him leaving the home of the Parkers to figure out who may be behind all of the recent attacks. Now he is confronted by Spider-Woman, who again in this universe is the clone of Peter Parker. But long story short, she tells him about how she was attacked and she feels like the recent attacks on the Baxter building and the Roxxon building is connected to that monster who attacked the heroes in our last video. But she thinks that Roxxon actually has something to do with it. And so her plan is to figure out if it is true that Roxxon is actually behind all of the recent attacks. We then get a splash page of the Thing fighting against the Fantastic Four, but this should tell you that none of this is real, mainly because Reed is there, and Reed supposedly died in our last video. That is when we see Susan Storm wake up, meaning that the last page was part of her dream. But you have her greeted by Ben Grimm, except we see that right now he looks normal again. He looks like he used to before the incident that made him the Thing. Now we also see that he can transform into this purple glowing form, and really, from what I gathered, he has the same abilities as he did before he turned into the Thing. But also the fact that he's now more agile, but the Thing is back to normal. And before him and the last two members of the Fantastic Four are able to celebrate this new form, that's when you have Carol Danvers and Nick Fury tell the three of them that they have been recruited to help figure out what's going on with these recent attacks. Now getting back over to Captain Marvel and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents at Project Pegasus, we see them talking about why Captain Marvel is there, except that is when the alarm goes off, letting them know that something is coming. And so you have Captain Marvel run outside to face whatever is coming. And when he does get outside, he runs into Rick Jones, the guy who the Watchers of this universe gave powers to, because he was chosen to one day lead the Earth in the right direction, to protect the Earth. But he says he came back because the Watchers told him to come back to Earth. Before we can learn more on what Rick Jones is talking about, we actually pick up with Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, as we come to find out that she's going to infiltrate Roxxon by pretending to be someone known as Julia Carpenter. And if you know that name, that is the name of the second Spider-Woman in the main Marvel universe. But we see Jessica using that name as a way to get into Roxxon, where she tells them that she used to work for the Baxter building. And remember that in this universe, the Baxter building was a think tank. The smartest children in the country went there to make weapons for the army. And so this Roxxon guy thinks that Jessica Drew is super smart and she gets hired. But getting back over to Captain Marvel and Rick Jones, we see that they are still discussing this whole Rick Jones was sent here to help protect the Earth by the Watchers. Now, Captain Marvel is confused because he never heard of the Watchers before. And the fact that there is a race out there giving people powers is kind of strange to him. Except in the middle of their conversation, that is when we see that something is taking over Captain Marvel's from the inside, which out of nowhere he turns into this horrible looking monster and begins to attack Rick Jones and the other SHIELD agents that were in the area. But you have Brian Michael Bendis take us over to Johnny Storm, Sue Storm, and Ben Grimm at the Baxter building. Nick Fury is there as well, but in some kind of disguise to make him look like the main Marvel Universe Nick Fury. But they are there to see if they can find any clues that can help them figure out more about the monsters from our last video. Now, Susan Storm realized something that is weird about the monster, that it grew when it came into contact with something, but after a while it lost control of itself after it grew to a certain size. But before they are able to learn more about the monster, that is when you have Rick Jones and Captain Marvel appear in the room, and we see them crash land in the middle of the room, where you have everyone ask him why he is here and why he brought Captain Marvel here. He tells everyone that he was thinking about heroes and his powers brought him here, because the only heroes he knew about are these guys. But you have Ben Grimm step up and say he's going to take on Captain Marvel on himself to see what his new powers can do. But before we can get to the battle, we have to pick up with Jessica Drew again, where we see her basically meeting the Roxxon version of the think tank. Now, some of these characters are making their first appearance. Layla Miller, Misty Knight, Samuel Stern, and Armin Zola III. The only character we have seen before is actually Nathaniel Essex, who we know him as Mr. Sinister, but also Apocalypse as well in this universe. And we will learn why this think tank was put together later on in the story. Now, getting back over to the fight between the last three members of the Fantastic Four and Captain Marvel, we do get a lot of splash pages to tell us that, hey, this is one epic battle, and we have to see how epic this battle is. But at the end of the fight, you have Ben Grimm being able to take down Captain Marvel at the end of the battle. But after everyone has stopped to realize that the battle is over, that is when you have Nick Fury, the Human Torch, and Ben Grimm realize that Susan Storm is missing, and so is Rick Jones. Well, we do get one more page that shows us that Susan Storm and Rick Jones have been teleported back to the base of Project Pegasus, except this time we see that everyone there is dead now. Well, maybe not everyone, but there are a bunch of dead bodies. Now, they do see shadow figures that look like the figure of the monster from our last video. And so they're going to see if they can learn more on why these monsters are inside the base of Project Pegasus. But we jump over to Jessica Drew, who is with the Roxxon think tank group, where they are working together to figure out who's behind the attacks from our last video. Now, this is where things get rough for Spider-Woman, because as soon as they begin to talk about who could be behind the attacks, you have the group figure out that Spider-Woman lied to get a spot on the team, which makes them wonder who she really is and why she is here for. Now, getting back over to Susan Storm, who is at the base of Project Pegasus, she walks inside to see more monsters that look just like the monster from our last video that the heroes captured, except while she does use her powers to stay hidden from them, that is when she is noticed by their leader, and their leader is no other than Reed Richards, letting us know that he did not die in our last video like we thought he did. He is alive and well, and apparently he is the bad guy of this whole event. Now, out of nowhere, you have Brian Michael Bendis remind us that when Reed was young, he was always picked on. He showed us this by using the same pages we have seen from the first issue of Ultimate Fantastic Four #1, where he was being bullied and he was saved by Ben Grimm to show us even back then they were close friends. Really, Ben Grimm was his only friend. We also get a couple pages that we have seen before to show us that Reed Richards' home life was rough, where his mother would try to be there for him and love him, but his father would always verbally abuse him because Reed was not the son he wanted. He wanted a son who played football. And so he would always talk down to Reed whenever he had the chance to do it. But getting back to the present day, we see the Human Torch, Nick Fury, and Carol Danvers are now interrogating Captain Marvel because they believe that he turned evil, but they don't know that something corrupted his system and made him go crazy. And he is trying to tell them that, hey, he's not a bad guy, but of course, they are not listening to him. And they think that he turned evil and he is working with someone. Plus, at the end of the fight, Susan and Rick did disappear as well. Then we get another 2 pages that refer back to the events of Ultimate Power, that lovely storyline. If you do remember, the Squadron Supreme team came to the Ultimate Marvel universe because Reed sent a probe into their universe that caused some parasite to grow and slowly kill off their planet. Even though technically Nick Fury was at fault for that, at first they blamed Reed for it. Then we get another couple pages referring back to Ultimatum, the event that changed the Ultimate Marvel Universe, where Doctor Doom was the one who had fault for making Magneto go crazy and made him flood New York and cause other natural disasters. But Reed blames himself for everything in Ultimatum since technically it was his first experiment that made the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. And so he is taking full responsibility for what happened. But then we jump back over to the present day, where we pick up with Spider-Woman and the Roxxon think tank. We have them still questioning Spider-Woman and also figure out why Roxxon put all of them together for. Where some say they were put together to figure out if there is a mole in the company, but some even think that Roxxon could have been behind the attacks, even though we know that Reed Richards was the one behind the attacks. That is when we learn that really this group was put together to actually figure out if there was a mole in the group. The way we find out is because after they tell Spider-Woman that they believe that Roxxon could be behind the attacks, she tries to escape, but she is captured by Samuel Stern, who in this universe is some kind of Hulk monster, where in the main Marvel universe, he is the leader, a well-known enemy of the Hulk. But to close on this book, we actually pick up with the Human Torch, Nick Fury, Carol Danvers, and Ben Grimm, still beating up on Captain Marvel to figure out where is Susan Storm. But that is when you have Susan Storm walk in and tell the others that she knows who's behind all the attacks, where of course she tells them that it is Reed Richards. And he told her back then that he is not done yet. But we see that she was badly injured from that fight against him earlier. And this is where we are going to Now, the way Ultimate Doom opens up is by letting us see the fight between Reed Richards and Susan Storm because she found out that it was him behind all of the attacks. Susan cannot believe that Reed would do something like this, but you have Reed tell her that he changed after they broke up. Reed even continues on to say that when he was dating Susan, that she was kind of holding him back from making so many different scientific discoveries. Now, Susan is hearing all of this and thinking that Reed has gone crazy and thinks maybe she can help him in a way, but Reed has switched sides now. And this leads to Susan actually trying to fight against Reed, using her powers in different ways, hoping that maybe she'll be able to stop Reed by herself. Now remember that Rick Jones, who's supposed to be this big time protector, is there as well, but he's too scared to help Susan. Now getting back over to the fight between Susan and Reed, we watch Susan try different things to bring Reed down, but she can't do anything at all. and Reed is actually kicking her butt because he has an army. And so Reed and his creatures are actually able to beat down on Susan. Now, Rick Jones does finally step in to help Susan out, but his way of helping out is by blowing up the place, which of course blows up the device that Reed and his creatures use to teleport into the place. And so it caused some mini black hole in a way where Reed and his creatures are sucked through the hole while Rick Jones used his powers to teleport him and Susan right outside of the Triskelion, which leads into the end of our last video, with her telling them, the heroes, everything she found out, which was Reed Richards is a bad guy now. Now we pick up at the Roxxon Company building where we see Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, tied to some machine. Remember that she is the clone of Peter Parker in this universe. Long story short, she was captured in our last video because she was trying to pretend to be working for the Roxxon Company to gather information because her and Spider-Man thought that they were the ones behind all the attacks in Ultimate Enemy. Except she got captured by Roxxon think tank. But right before we jump to the next page, we see that Doc Ock is there as well. Now, the first chapter actually closes with Susan being rushed into the hospital section of the Triskelion, hoping that the doctors will be able to save her life, where of course the door closes and you have the Human Torch upset because that is his sister who's on the verge of dying, it seems. And the problem is that the only lead the heroes have right now is Rick Jones, and he of course does not know where Reed is at. And after they figure that out, that is when they see the doctors are having a hard time saving the life of Susan Storm. Now, this is where we get a couple pages of this flashback where Reed and Susan are having a picnic on top of a rooftop. But this is where we see Reed bring up the idea of how much he hates the world, how he is actually thinking about getting rid of this world for a new one in their image, where you have Susan kind of startled by what he said. But then he continues on about finding a dimension and they could change that dimension into their own image as well. Except this flashback ends to remind us that in the present day, Susan is on the verge of dying. That is when we see Susan's powers are going crazy and things in the room are being thrown all over the place. And you have Ben Grimm, the Human Torch, Nick Fury, Rick Jones, and Carol Danvers trying to calm her down, except of course she can't. But you didn't have Ben Grimm being able to break through her force field to calm her down to relax. Except right after he did that, you have her tell everyone in the room that they need to evacuate because Reed is going to attack the Triskelion again very soon. Now, getting back over to Jessica Drew, who is right now being held hostage by Roxxon Think Tank and Doc Ock, we see that Doc Ock is thinking about doing more experiments on Jessica because he was the one who created her. Except you have Spider-Man come in and save the day. And this leads to him taking on both Doc Ock and Samuel Stearns, who's apparently the Roxxon version of the Hulk, but does not seem as strong as the Hulk. But you have Spider-Man being able to beat every single one of the bad guys in the room and get Jessica Drew out of the building to save her life. And this leads to a heartfelt moment where Jessica Drew is thankful for Peter saving her life from the man she hates, Doc Ock. And this is a big moment to see for these two characters because they have always been kind of distant from each other. But then you have the Roxxon building begin to be torn apart again by the same monster we saw in Ultimate Enemy. But the story shifts over to Susan Storm and the others, where we see that they have not left the Triskelion yet, even though earlier she told them they had to. Except they are looking to see if S.H.I.E.L.D. was keeping tabs on Reed. Where Carol Danvers only has a small amount of information on Reed, you have Nick tell them the secret code to help them access the file on Reed and everything Reed was working on while being at the Baxter building, where they discover that Reed has found so many different dimensions. Now Susan wants to use a sample of Captain Marvel as a way to locate Reed in the right dimension, except that is when the Triskelion is attacked by Reed forces as well. Now, the opening of chapter 3 actually let us know that there were other places that were attacked as well. A biomedical place in Seattle, Stark Industries, the base that used to belong to Dr. Doom. And then the book reminds us about the places that were attacked that we have seen in our past videos. But this is to show us that Reed is attacking places that are connected to him by being a hero or a scientist. It is only 3 splash pages, but this is to show us that Reed is attacking places for different key reasons. Now, the next couple pages show us that Susan and the others were able to get out of the Triskelion just in time before it blew up. Then you have her use her powers to put everyone in force fields to protect them from drowning. They have to stay down there until they think it is clear to go back to the surface, because Reed could be looking to see if anyone survived the attack. Then they have Rick Jones use his powers again to be able to teleport everyone somewhere away from the Triskelion area. Well, of course, they are teleported to Project Pegasus. And for you new people to the channel, this was the place where S.H.I.E.L.D. and the American government kept artifacts from over the years until Reed had basically stolen everything. Where they are greeted by Wendell Vaughn, the person who's in charge of Project Pegasus. And this leads to Susan asking him if there is a computer that she can use that is untraceable, where Wendell tells her that there is a hidden S.H.I.E.L.D. computer underneath Project Pegasus that not even Carol Danvers nor Nick Fury knew about. But then the story shifts back over to Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. We see them actually trying to save the people of Roxxon from this second attack on the company, where you have them run into Doc Ock, and of course, you have Jessica want to leave him to die. But you have Spider-Man remind her that they are heroes. They don't kill or let someone die because of their feelings towards that person. Instead, they try to save everyone's life no matter what. Now, getting back over to Susan and the others, you have Susan using the computer to find out where Reed is at, where of course she's able to find out that Reed is right now in some kind of pocket dimension. Except the only problem is that she needs a sample from one of the many bio creatures to be able to take the heroes there. Where you have Nick Fury tell her that there is an attack going on at the moment at Roxxon, and they want to send Rick Jones to go there and actually get a sample to bring back to Project Pegasus for the heroes to go after Reed Richards. This leads to the story going back over to Spider-Man and Spider-Woman as they do save Doc Ock, except right after they do, the monster actually begins to stop attacking and slowly disappears. You then have Rick Jones and the Human Torch come in and run into Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, and Doc Ock, where they are all brought up to speed on what is going on. And Rick Jones is able to get a sample of the monster to bring back to Susan. And this will lead us into the final chapter. This leads to a rushed conclusion of the story where we pick up in the area of the negative zone that was not discovered yet but was by Reed Richards, where we see Reed is working on his computer but he is greeted by Ben Grimm. This is big because Reed and Ben have been friends for so long, and for Ben to see Reed acting like this, he is hoping that Reed maybe had some kind of second evolution like he did that kicked in and hopefully made Reed go crazy. Except you have Reed tell Ben that he had not have no second evolution, that this is him. He just realized that the world needed to be changed for the better. And now Reed realized that Ben new powers must gave Ben the ability to come here undetected. Except this leads to all the heroes, well, most of the heroes from the Ultimate Marvel Universe arriving here to finally stop Reed. I mean, the heroes we have been following have finally been able to bring in the Ultimates into this event to help out with taking down Reed and his army of creatures. I will admit, the artwork is beautiful to see, and we do get to see the heroes being able to do some damage here. But you have Spider-Man and Doc Ock work together to see if they are able to hack into the computer of Reed, hoping they can find a way to shut everything down that he has done so far. Except this leads into them talking about just teleporting the computer somewhere else, just not here, and that would help them finally defeat Reed. And so you have Rick Jones just do what he has been doing, which is teleporting all over the place. And so he teleports the computer somewhere else besides here in the negative zone. Sadly, Rick Jones teleports the computer of Reed, but also Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, and Doc Ock to Rick Jones' old elementary school, because it was all he could think of. This page is actually pretty important because this is where Captain Marvel and Doc Ock tell us, and Spider-Man, that the reason why Reed attacked the home of the Parkers is because Peter Parker is so smart that he actually rivals Reed's intelligence, and Peter was one of the many pieces that could have stopped Reed. This leads to the other heroes who are still in the negative zone, but you have Reed tell them that with his computer gone, this area is going to collapse and everything is going to disappear. Except you have the heroes actually get back on a helicarrier to get out of the zone. And you have Sue and Ben try to convince Reed to come with them, but you have Reed just give them a look and actually let the area of the negative zone fall apart around him, and he falls away into the unknown as the heroes leave the negative zone. We do get 2 one-pagers for the story. One being the fact that we see the heroes talking to each other about what great work they did. Except you have Nick Fury use some new power of his we never saw before, where he is able to disappear and make everyone forget that he was even there at the event. Then we learn that Spider-Woman has been recruited into joining S.H.I.E.L.D. for some unknown reason, and this will lead into her taking up a future role down the road. But you have her and Carol Danvers actually tell Doc Ock that he's going back to jail again. And to close on this video, we see Ben Grimm and Susan Storm actually outside thinking about everything that has happened since Ultimate Enemy, all the way up to now in this story. But you have Susan tell Ben that she actually does love him and wants to be with him actually, and they become a couple in this book right here. And that is the end of Ultimate Doom. But before the book closes, we see that Reed Richards is actually floating still in the negative zone. And guys, this is where we're going to end today's video. And so guys, please leave me a like down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read? Well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'm out of here and I will see you on the next comic book video. Later, guys.